Alright, so I finished the Snyder Cut, and like I said I was going to, I'm going to do a little review. It's not going to be a long one. So I took some notes because I'm a full-on dork. Overall, I'll say I liked it. It was, while I do still think that Snyder is not as good a director as many think he is, including himself, um, that was a far superior movie to the abomination that was released originally in theaters. Um, it was really long. It was 4 fucking hours long. He still needed some kind of editor, but it wasn't a terrible. It kept me interested through at least all of it. It didn't feel like 4 hours. It was good, but there was a lot going on there. Um, I'll say things that were good. It was way gorier. It was way cooler. It looked better, particularly Steppenwolf, the villain. He looked way cooler, and they introduced all these other new gods from Apocalypse who looked cool as shit, including Darkseid. Um, they expanded on the story a lot because now it's 4 hours, and we got way more of like Cyborg and his father. So there was less bullshit. There wasn't as much stupid shit added in Whedon, like in Whedon's version. There wasn't a lot. There wasn't. It wasn't as cheesy. It wasn't as stupid. It felt like there was a lot of forced, uh, trite elements, like having the characters have like weird little conflicts with each other that were completely unnecessary. They cut that shit out, which was good. So it wasn't just stuff that was added in. There was stuff cut out of the original from the original version that was just way it was way better ideas. You could tell we didn't have quite as much influence with adding shit in as he did taking stuff out, but the stuff he added was not good. Um, like I said, they expanded on the story more, like the showing the when Darkseid tried to come in from the past. That scene was in him getting beaten by the gods of old and the humans and the Atlanteans and the Amazonians when he first tried to conquer Earth. That was a cool scene. The setup for the future stuff, that was pretty cool, showing that like like one of the things that was in the original version is that when Lex Luthor meets with Deathstroke, it looks like they're going to set up their own Injustice League, which just felt cheesy and forced. And then in this version, it's like that's not so much what they're doing. That he just met with Deathstroke so he could tell him who Batman really was. So that was a more interesting approach. And then getting a view of the future, the still like apocalyptic future and what's going on there that we got a hint of in Batman versus Superman. That was also really, really cool. We got Martian Manhunter in the story. Like I said, we got to see Darkseid, we got to see Desaad, we got to see Granny Goodness a little bit. We got to see Martian Manhunter. He's now very much a part of the story. There was a lot of setup for future movies. Like there's more story to tell here. Now, while I don't exactly want Zack Snyder to be taking over all the DC movies, I think they've done a lot of good stuff since he's been gone. I think the Aquaman movie was cool without his influence. I think Shazam was good. The Wonder Woman movies have just gotten progressively worse, but uh, you know they can't all be perfect. Um, I mean, Wonder Woman 1984 was just dog shit. It was a fucking awful movie. It was so terrible. Um, But I would like to see him. I would like to see Snyder make more Justice League movies. Like I said, I don't think he's as great a director as he thinks he is. I think he's a good idea guy, and I think he's very good at coming up with very cool visual sequences. But I think he's a kind of mediocre storyteller. Or like I think he's just a few steps above Michael Bay in terms of storytelling. So I wouldn't want to turn over everything to him. I think that was see. That's part of like everybody wants to put this all on Whedon, but it's not all on Whedon. I get not liking him; he was a bad choice, but you have to take things back to what was going on when that movie was originally made. Warner Brothers already wanted Snyder gone. They already wanted him out the door. This movie was obviously going over budget. It was taking way too long, and they weren't certain about him anymore either. Uh, Man of Steel wasn't well received. Batman versus Superman wasn't well received. The movies were losing money. They weren't making as much money as they'd hoped. They weren't doing as well as the Marvel movies. So Warner Brothers was kind of panicking. You could already see when they recut fucking Suicide Squad and made that into a fucking mess. They were obviously panicking, and they felt like what was going on wasn't working, so they wanted to try something different. But they couldn't necessarily just force Snyder out. But the minute he had his personal tragedy in his life and he had to step away for a minute, they took the opportunity to go, okay, go, we'll handle this on our own. And they brought in another director who had already proven successful working for Marvel, whose success they wanted to emulate. They brought him in to finish the movie, and then they probably, I'm guessing, that wasn't all just on Whedon. That the people at Warner Bros. Said, you need to cut this down, you need to simplify it, you need to make it more like a Marvel movie, and that's what he did. He did what he was hired to do, and it was awful. So, yes, Whedon made a shitty film, but he made a shitty film because Warner Brothers brought him in. And the reason Warner Brothers was so keen to bring him in is because the past two movies Snyder had made were very off-kilter story-wise, and their delivery was not very good, and people didn't like it. And for good reason. Like, I remember when Man of Steel came out, it was so poorly received, it actually made people start pretending that Superman Returns was a good movie. And Superman Returns is not a good movie. It was a movie so fucking bad, it destroyed poor Brandon Routh's movie career. That motherfucker was trying to go from a TV actor to a movie star, and it fucking killed it in one goddamn movie. Proving that yet again, Superman can very much be a curse. Now, Henry Cavill, to his credit, has somehow managed to avoid that. I think because the dude just has natural star power. He's got everything going for him. He's charismatic, he's a decent actor, he's incredibly good looking. So, he really does have all the pluses, all the plus columns checked. So, he's good. I'm not worried about him. But Superman has destroyed more than a few actors and directors, and I think that's what happened with Snyder again. It was the old Superman curse. He had a lot of ambitions, but he didn't have quite the skill to achieve it. But like I said, he's a good idea guy, and I think what he's setting up is interesting. I wish he had a collaborator who was like a better storyteller. Because, he's a good idea guy. He's just not a good storyteller. He can come up with good ideas. He just can't always communicate them that well. He just kind of throws them at you. And it's just like, Alright. Because while there were a lot of differences with that movie, there were also a lot of not differences with that movie. There were a lot of things that were very similar. That were kind of like a little off the first time around. Like, the last fight scene, I thought, where they were in that like Russian village, it seemed at first that it was going to be very similar, but then it did start to change, and it actually became a much cooler scene. It became less messy and more just them fighting Steppenwolf, which was pretty cool. So, and I still don't like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I still think that was a bad casting choice. He's just, I'm getting really sick of unintimidating villains. These fucking, I mean, just guys who are no way scary in any way, shape, or form playing the bad guys, and I'm supposed to believe it. I don't believe it. I don't buy Jesse Eisenberg as a villain. Um, I do like that they added in way more comic book shit. I think that's Marvel tries to make its movies a lot more grounded. They're moving into like a bit more off kilter, crazier shit now. But even when they do that, it's still very grounded. Like, I didn't like how tame they made like Thanos and shit. Don't get me wrong, I love those movies and there were cool things in them, but it seems like they water stuff down a lot. It's just like, no, comic books are crazy. That's what makes them fun. Do the crazy shit. I think DC does the crazy shit, but they don't. Like I said, they don't always tell their stories very well. That's why I liked like Aquaman. It was a decent story, and there was a lot of crazy shit in it. I think with what Snyder's doing with the Justice League movies is there's a lot of crazy shit in it. He just doesn't tell the story well. I say it again. So it's like, you know, you got one thing going. If only you could fix this other thing, it'd be really cool. Um, he's really into slow motion shots. It's one thing when it's like the Flash and it's trying to show like him in the Speed Force, but he does it at like a lot of fight scenes. It's like, all right, dude, you don't need to do this much. Um, I'm trying to understand why Mira had an English accent. I don't remember that in the original movie. Maybe I'm just misremembering that. I blocked out that fucking shit show a lot. But she kept having an English accent. I don't remember having that in the Aquaman movie. I think that was a weird aesthetic choice that they just decided to change down the road. So that was interesting. But let's see. I couldn't shake how similar like the overall story was. Not incredibly, but in certain ways, how similar the story was to the origin story for the New 52 version of the Justice League. I don't know where the chicken or the egg situation happened here, but one definitely influenced the other, and I think that's definitely Jeff Johns' influence. And while I have like stuff that he's written, a lot of his more recent influence on comic books and stuff outside of comic books has been none too good. That's like a guy who's obviously run out of all the good ideas he had. So that's just another thing I noticed. But yeah, good movie, but I also wonder how much that's because I'm comparing it to a way shittier version of itself. So if I was gonna give this a star count out of 10, mm, the original version I'd give a fucking straight up 3. maybe. I'll be nice and say 3. 3 stars. Just a fucking shit show. This one, I'll give it a 6. A better than average. It's cool. Could have been better. Things definitely could have been improved upon. But overall, I think it's a good movie. I don't know if it's 4 hours good, but fuck it. If you're like me and you have 4 hours and you have nothing to do on a fucking Saturday night and you don't have to work the next day and you like comic books, fuck it. Watch it. Um, so yeah, that's that. If you like this, uh, maybe I'll do more reviews of shit that I really like. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. So yeah, have a good one.